is unlike any other power system you've ever seen before. Rather than having simple powers that are based on the individual, these powers are based on a king in their kingdom. It's like one giant network, and when you look at the bigger picture, you'll realize just how unique it is. And
What's up, everyone? I hope you're having a blessed day. I've got another banging video for you today, and this one is one of my favorite things in all of anime. It's what builds the anime up and what everything revolves around. This is more about power systems. We previously talked about one of the best power systems in terms of creativity and battle IQ in our World Trigger video. But this one, I've got another unique power system what's very underrated, but I'll definitely put is the top 5 in all of anime. From the underrated show of Magi. It's quite a unique power system with magic and weapons. Let's get straight into it. This is the insanity of Magic's power system explained.
Is unlike any other power system you've ever seen before. Rather than having simple powers that are based on the individual, these powers are based on a king in their kingdom. It's like one giant network, and when you look at the bigger picture, you'll realize just how unique it is. And with a kingdom-based power system, it is only natural to start things off with its king. But even then, there is a process before you can even become one, because ultimately a king will need power. And in order to receive power, you must show your worth through completing a dungeon. And upon completing said dungeon, you meet a Djinn. There are many different types of Djinn. There are 72 dungeons, 72 god staffs, and 72 Djinns that exist within the series, and all of them are connected. So the first thing I want to talk about is first world magic from Almatron. So in the first world, there are these weapons known as god staffs. And like the name implies, you can use the powers of a god to make magic. But in order to do that, you would need this energy, and this energy would be known as Magoi. Magoi is basically Magi's equivalent to energy or life energy in manga. It's basically like Nen or cursed energy. So when it comes from magic from the first world, typically they would receive energy from God or Magoi from God, and this would make their magic on a completely different tier. And the reason why they're able to do such a thing is because every single magician has an invisible organ, the third eye, and this allows them to get Magoi from God. So over time in the first world, eventually a more evolved version of the god staffs were created, and those are known as metal vessels. Just as there were 72 god staffs, there are also 72 metal vessels. And these same metal vessels were given to leaders of various different...
The history and the lore of Magi is so deep and intricate. I can imagine why they didn't want to renew it for another season, because in terms of the lore, it gets very deep and it's really hard to follow, I'll be completely honest. That, and you kind of do go away from Aladdin and Alibaba for quite a long time for a series, so it makes sense. But yeah, the weapons, crazy.
Use powerful magic. And the users of these metal vessels from the first world then became the guardians of the metal vessels and became Djinns for kings to use in the second world, which is the world where Magi takes place in, and were locked away in dungeons for future kings to conquer and be able to attain those same powers. So that should be it in terms of magic from the first world. Now we're going to be moving on to the second world, which is basically the official power system in Magi. So back to what I was saying in the beginning of the video. These kings, after conquering a dungeon, they are now known as king's vessels. Candidates that are worthy of becoming king of the world, and they are users of the metal vessels. After a Djinn decides that you are worthy, you then use that same metal vessel that they used from the first world. And there are 3 different levels on how they are used. Now the first level doesn't have an official name, but I like to refer to it as a lesser Djinn summon, because that's exactly what it is. In the beginning of the manga, we see Hakuei use the power of Paimon, and we see her summon Paimon, but unfortunately, Paimon isn't in her full manifestation, because that would require way too much Magoi. The only people that can fully manifest the Djinn are Magi. This is why we're able to see Aladdin just straight up summon Ugo, and other Djinn, because a Magi practically has unlimited Magoi. And Magoi is what you use to summon your Djinn. Now a regular human would not have enough to make a full manifested Djinn appear, so that's why they use a lesser summon. When Alibaba is using generic fire magic with his metal vessel, that's because he is using a lesser Djinn summon. The next level would be the start of this technique known as a Djinn Equip. A Djinn Equip is when you embrace your Djinn's power to make yourself a demon. And the start of doing that would be a weapon equip. Rather than doing a lesser summon, you let your Djinn reside inside of your weapon, and this allows you to use the Djinn's weapon itself. And the third and final level would be a full body Djinn Equip, when you and your Djinn become one, and you're able to make full use of your Djinn's power. And outside of the appearance, another way to recognize which level they're using, there's typically a different chant that the user would say before performing one of the 3 summons. Now, every single Djinn Equip does some different form of magic, and magic can be categorized into 8 different types: heat, water, light, lightning, wind, sound, strength.
Quite interesting. I've never actually seen this diagram, but basic elementals, isn't it? Fire, water, light. I'm surprised there's no dark here, but I suppose that could easily be in Life-Rick. Thunder, wind, sound, strength. These ones you don't often see quite often, sound and thunder. Normally they're part of flames, fire. But yeah, no ice, which is quite interesting, but I suppose that could be part of water as well. quite the diversity rather than a regular standard like 4 powers of generally like air, water, fire, and earth. I like how it's added more categories. It really expands on the power system and what makes it one of the more unique systems in terms of just the structure and how people, the type of powers people kind of have. It's not always the same generic kind of abilities, but with the ideas of sound, life, it opens up quite more possibilities, which is one of the reasons I would say it's quite a great power system.
In life. Now regards into what category a Djinn would fall under, that would more or less be self-explanatory. If a Djinn is using fire, it would be a heat magic. If a Djinn uses water, it would use water magic, and so on and so forth. In certain rare occasions, they can use more than one. But even though Djinns might be in the same magic type, the way they use their magic can vary entirely. If you were to compare Amon to Astaroth, they're both heat magic based, but Amon has a special ability where it can cut through practically anything, including other metal vessels. As for Astaroth, Astaroth uses white flames, and these flames will continue as long as the user wants it to. They'll basically burn you forever unless the person who caused the flames tells them to stop. Another example of this would be both Zagan and Belial. They both use life magic, but they use it in complete different ways. Zagan can create life through plants and microorganisms, while Belial can manipulate it by cutting off your senses and sending your soul to another dimension. And then on top of all this, every single Djinn has a technique known as extreme magic. These are basically like your ultimate techniques or final attacks, kind of like an astral finish from Blaze Blue. And outside of these regular Djinns and metal vessels, we actually have dark versions. We have dark metal vessels and dark Djinns. When it comes to the transformation process, the user has to sacrifice themselves in order to transform. And once they do, they become a giant dark Djinn, a monster fueled by hatred, mad with power, and has immense strength. It seems as though if you do have enough hatred, you might be able to pull off a full body dark Djinn equip, but unfortunately, when you do use a dark Djinn equip or a dark Djinn, you will die, and your corpse will remain giving the look of charcoal. Now that we're done with the king's specific abilities, I would like to talk about a king's right-hand man, a mage, or in most cases, a Magi. Typically, Magi or mages are given supporting roles to help their king. Just like metal vessel users, they also fall into the bracket of different magic.
I will not lie, I do like the idea of powers where you have to be careful how to use it, otherwise it can consume you. That all like double-edged kind of power is always cool because it really always plays on the idea of balance, yin and yang, and also making sure power has a cost, which I think is a very important part of any power system. You can't just go exponentially strong without any costs or risks associated to it. Otherwise, it just makes the power system a little bit flat. But when you add this ever a risk, that does for me propel it into a better kind of power system.
Types. And alongside their main magic type, they have a secondary one as well. And in order to determine what your secondary magic type would be, it would be directly across from your primary. So if we look at this graph, if I was a flame mage, I would be a number 1. My opposite would then be a type 5, which would be directly across from 1. So that means my secondary would be wind. But just because you have a main and a secondary type of magic, that does not mean you aren't capable of using any of the other magic types if you are skilled enough. As long as you are willing to learn, your possibilities as a mage are limitless. But you will excel in the specific class that you're in. The more advanced version of magic would be known as composite magic, when you take more than one type of magic and combine them all simultaneously to make a brand new attack. We see Titus do this in his duel against Aladdin, where he combines heat magic, water magic, and strength magic to make an explosion, creating brand new unnatural magic. And Magi are capable of doing this by using different formulas. For example, that one entire instance where Titus used composite magic, he used 180 different formulas. It gets so crazy in this series, by the end of it, Aladdin uses 1,022,000 in one instant. Now, if we boil Magecraft and Magi to a much simpler form, we take away all these natural phenomena that they're capable of doing. They take raw energy or Magoi and they shoot with it or make simple shields known as Borg, and they get all of this energy from Rook. The more advanced applications of magic would be to take this same energy and then create natural phenomena. And while we're on the topic of energy and Magoi, everything that I've talked about between mages, Magi, and metal vessel users, all of this costs energy. All of this costs Magoi. And once you run out of that said energy, you are then useless. But it is possible to recharge by sucking up other elements around you for a recharge. And this is exactly why Magi and magicians are so important when it comes to being a king's vessel, because they can give you free Magoi charge. As a king, this power system runs on one giant network. Now, the main difference between a Magi and a regular mage, a Magi is a super powered mage with unlimited Magoi because they can use Magoi from the environment around them. And they're the ones who ultimately determine who will become king of the world. Now that we have the kings and the mages out the way, it's time we talk about household vessels. Household vessels are people who the Djinn deems worthy to to work alongside the person that they chose as their king, allowing them to use the power of their king as well. But unfortunately, not to the same degree. Even though household vessels might be under the same Djinn, they will not have the same exact powers. For example, Sarkhan and Masru are both under the household of Sinbad, but how they use Baal are completely different. When Masru uses the ability of his household vessel, he uses this technique called Thunderbolt Armor. He uses electricity to maximize his current muscle strength, and it removes the limits on his muscle contraction, so it amplifies how strong he is. When Sarkhan uses his household vessel, he uses this technique known as Flowing Flash Sword. And whenever he cuts, his cuts remain in the same area that he once cut before, and it leaves a giant trail of electricity. Despite both of them using the same Djinn, the way they go about using it is completely different. Creativity makes the difference.
This is one of the things I do love about this power system. It's a case that power is shared. You obviously have the king at the very top, and through that it trickles down the power. And even through that power, it's not a case of like copy and paste or kind of splitting the power. It's more a case of everyone has an aspect of the power, but it's all derived from the same source. But then they can use it in a way that best suits them in terms of fighting style, in terms of how they want to equip it, depending on like the kind of weapon they want to use it for. And through that, one power is be able to be shown in multiple different forms, which I just think is so fascinating.
He uses electricity to maximize his current muscle strength, and it removes the limits on his muscle contraction, so it amplifies how strong he is. When Sarkhan uses his household vessel, he uses this technique known as Flowing Flash Sword. And whenever he cuts, his cuts remain in the same area that he once cut before, and it leaves a giant trail of electricity. Despite both of them using the same Djinn, the way they go about using it is completely different. Creativity makes the difference when it comes to everything. As a household vessel, Morgiana can use heat magic to control air currents and fly, but there's also a downside when it comes to being a household vessel. If you do acquire more power from your vessel, you will then turn into the second stage of power when it comes to using a household, and that stage would be known as assimilation. When you assimilate with your household vessel, you are basically becoming one with the spirit of the Djinn that you are working under. You will no longer be human and will become the same species that same Djinn was. You will become a giant colossal monster. Now that we're done with the king and his network of magicians and in general as a part of his household vessel, there's still some things that we need to talk about in terms of this power system. First of which would be Magoi manipulation. Just like how mages use Magoi to cause natural disasters and make spells, users of this technique can put their life force or Magoi into objects around them and strengthen them beyond their normal capabilities. Amon is a sword that can cut through anything, but Magoi manipulation can literally counteract that ability. Magoi manipulation can do a bunch of insane things if you have the proper training with it, like completely destroying the insides of somebody's body due to your mere touch, becoming so strong that you just simply levitate.
Very powerful.
Magoi manipulation gets so crazy that if you touch things, they will simply be blown away or even destroyed. And outside of Magoi manipulation, people can become monster human chimera hybrids by fusing themselves with dungeon creatures. But last but not least, we also have magic tools, guns, swords, magic weaponry that you can find in a dungeon. Self-explanatory. It is a weapon that uses magic. Examples of this would be Aladdin's magic carpet, the god staffs that Ugo made, cell phones, a water rapier, and my personal favorite, the refrigerator. And oh my word, this power system is insane. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please show support, because if you like the video, I'll be able to make more Magi videos. And don't forget to comment what video you'd like to see next. And I hope to see you guys in the next Magi video. Take it easy.
Not bad. I was saying, Magi, in terms of its power system and lore, is very, very in-depth. And it really takes a big brain to fully understand it. Is it as complex as something like Hunter x Hunter and then? No. But in terms of understanding its lore, it's definitely up there. Is it as good as the World Trigger? For me, no. World Trigger for me will always be a bit higher for it. But just its uniqueness in terms of how versatile and wide range its power system encapsulates is so good. From the way it has all those different, has 8 levels of types of powers, rather than kind of like a standard like 4 or 6. The idea of having weapons and the old idea of it one king's power, but that king's power can be shared. I love that as a concept. How different powers put into different weapons or kind of items changes the effects. Putting a power like a sword is changed to difference. If it was like armor, which different. Like if it's like in the ring, with its difference. If it's like in a chain, all this matches with the personality of the user, which adds another level of uniqueness, which is very good. And also the element of power, but you have to build it with having a relationship with the Djinn also. I do like power systems like that, where getting stronger isn't simply about trading harder, but also understanding your power more as much as training it. And that level also makes it very intriguing to me. But that was just my thoughts. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know of any power systems, what you think are better. I'll have a check it out and we can compare them together. Maybe after we've done enough, we'll even do a tier list. Why not? But that's been the video for today. Like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, ciao.